Good afternoon, everyone. This is Marcia Metzger, and I'm here to bring you another webinar thanks to Protect Ohio Children and their sponsorship of these webinars. Folks, we present these to you in hopes that you will use them in your area and implement the strategies and techniques that we are teaching you about. So today, excuse me, is about 21st century skills in public schools. So let's jump in. All right. One thing I want to remind you of is that the parent navigators are both online on my website, parentsonthelevel.com slash the parent navigator, hyphenated there. Today's webinar will cover several of the pages starting at 88 and to 90 some. I can't see for something that's in front of that. But anyway, there's a few pages there that talk about 21st century skills. So, the Partnership for 21st Century Learning is also known as P21. So, you know, the schools are going to have an acronym to shorten things up, and it kind of keeps a smoke screen in front where you don't know what they're exactly talking about. But anyway, this information, a lot of it's derived from this particular book, Assessment and Teaching of 21st Century Skills. And don't you know that this is straight out of UNESCO? UNESCO is pretty much a global level entity, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. That could be 10 webinars in itself. So we'll just leave it right there for now, and we'll tell you a little more about it in just a moment. All right, so the Partnership for 21st Learning Century Skills is an organization. And of course, it'll have some mergers later on down the line as well. And it functions a lot like some of the other things we've already discussed on our channel. So if you'll remember when we were working with social and emotional learning, when I was first teaching about that with the Castle series, I showed you that it was a framework. And also that in this framework, there were people behind it and everything. And P21 is no different. This is another framework. And whereas SEL is focused on mental health and emotional regulation, so to speak, well, P21 is focused on technology and the economic status of the global citizenship and the collective, so to speak. So you'll see a lot of that kind of verbiage in this discussion today. So we're looking at the future, and the emergency is our students must be future ready. Future ready. You'll hear that a lot. That's their little saying. They need to be future ready. Now, one thing I want you to note, as I have on this page here, as we move through today, you're going to notice a lot of yellow arrows that say peer group work. All right. That is very important to think about I've showed you how peer pressure is used in social and emotional learning. The same situation is happening in P21 learning as well. So we know that I've called that several times the modern day struggle session that our kids are placed in the schools. And that is why transformation is so easy to take place. I mean, we all remember what it felt like to experience peer pressure. So it's the same thing in the P21 structure. All right, so P21, here we go. Of course, they have all their little organizations here. They're typically grouped into three main areas, often referred to as the three L's. We have learning skills, we have literacy skills, we have life skills, okay? And you'll notice that many of these are extremely familiar and they overlap with things I've already taught you about in social and emotional learning in the five competencies. And we also know that when we see the word literacy, that means a lot more than reading. So let's continue here. All right, so next, here I'm going to give you a breakdown based on the common frameworks because all of this together, it's a little overwhelming. So we're just going to take it a little at a time today. And you will notice as I present today, Several of my screens are going to have a lot of information on them. I'm not going to be able to go through every single one of those today with you, but I want it to be here so when you come back to this as a resource, you can hit pause and you can read through it at your own leisure. And also remember, it is in the 2.0 Parent Navigator as well. There's a lot of information that overlaps. All right, so next. So now we have the three L's, and the first one is about the four C's. The three L's, the four C's. So we have a lot that sounds very similar to things we've discovered in social emotional learning. You have critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. Okay. And a lot of this analyzing information, generating innovative ideas, working effectively in teams, communicating amongst each other. A lot of this has to do with when you think about the digital atmosphere that's going on in today's society, a lot of it has to do with all of these particular learning skills and the four C's. Um, we're going to be putting kids together in groups and discussing things. And a lot of times they have to come into and collaborate and gain a consensus with one another. And that many times is translated into a proper cultural competence rating for them as well. Can they work together as a team? Do they play well with others? There's no telling how they're going to grade a lot of these things because, as we know, a lot of the things that are going on in the schools today are very subjective, and there's no two programs are exactly alike. Now, you might have some particular things introduced where, you have some standards in some things, but probably not P21 yet. I haven't really checked into the standards aspect and what's registered at the state levels here. But you will see a few things that apply to the state level in a few moments. But like I say, a lot of this stuff is fluid, a lot of it's objective. So we're just warming up, we're just coming into it without getting too nitty gritty. So I asked Google Gemini, what is P21 in education? And so it comes out with a lot of the same things. I talk about Grok. I talk with Grok on the this particular presentation as well, and just discussing, where it's coming from, who's involved in it, and things like that. Every single time, each one of the programs that I talk to it about, they will talk about citizenship, globalism, how they teach with integration, how it's looking at workforce, and how corporations are involved and investing in this particular framework. So this is looking for future ready jobs. And I don't know how many of you have been hearing that jobs are going to be kind of iffy because of AI, even taking white collar jobs. So when you look at all of this and you think about the news that you heard lately, this resonates. You can see where it's headed in the future. And if you think about it, those with the most dedicated cultural competence ratings, I would say would be at the front of the line for some of the better jobs or the better schools or whatever. That's just a guess on my part from how things have worked in the past. So all of these skills, it'll talk about it, and you can talk about these things with AI on your own to gain a deeper knowledge of this as well, because it just takes time to allow all of this to digest and thinking about it and everything. So number two of the three L's, I was about to say four, it's three L's, um, literacy skills. Now, do you recall back when we did our video about Newsella? If you will recall, we discussed media literacy a lot there and what that is, and it's being codified into law in several states that students will need to learn about media literacy. And a lot of the school systems are telling the students that they can only go to certain websites for any of their citation evidence for their papers. All of their citation work and everything would be based on approved websites or whatever. Now, we all know that when we're talking about people or countries that have been taken over with socialism or communism, propaganda is one of the biggest tools that's used to do that, right? So this has a lot to do with not as much, I mean, of course, they need to learn how to read. And we know that they're converting back to a lot of the science, with the science of reading, they're converting back to phonics and things like that. But when we're talking about literacy in P21, we really are talking about how they are analyzing credible resources and how they are looking at in media literacy. They're analyzing the work for biased material. So they're going to discredit truthful resources, conservative resources, and things of that nature. So this is just more of the same brainwash coming over the students. Technology, of course, they have to teach the students how to use the systems, how to use the hardware, and there's a lot of great stuff out there if they would just use it for good, right? Okay, so a lot of the things that they're doing too can be considered ratings could be more subjective than objective as well, which could be unfair to a student that would probably be a little more conservative than another. All right, so the third one is life skills. Folks, this right here just totally has the SEL vibe to it. Life skills, this would be what parents should be teaching their kids. Um, and kids by a certain age need to be setting their own goals and things like that and learning how to be accountable. And I get it. So, but that they're pretty much wrapping it all up. Maybe this is the bow that they're just sealing the deal with. So you can look through that if you want to, but I'm going to move on right now. Okay, so in 21st century skills, what are they taught? So it stems from the recognition that automation, globalization, and digital transformation have reshaped job markets and societal needs. Got it. Not a problem with how all of these globalization, automation, all that stuff. But when you start talking about societal needs, and then you come down to the bottom and it talks about schools aim to equip students for, look at that last one, lifelong learning, adapting to continuous technological and social changes. Yeah, y'all know where we're going with that. Um, that's fluid, that's changing, moving the goalpost, whatever you want to say, but an element of control. All right, so now how are they taught? Now, this is where we talked about peer pressure earlier, too. Project based learning has been sold as such a dynamic way of teaching kids. And a lot of time you'll see pictures of kids in these labs. They're having a good time. They're doing things together. They're working on projects, right? And some teachers really drive good projects. They really do. Some kids are learning and they're on schedule, whatever. But for the teacher that is the culturally responsive teacher that's really sold on the globalistic aspect of what P21 is bringing to the table, they can use this in a way that will just trigger every culturally relevant uh, aspect of a lesson that they want to bring. It all depends on who's teaching it and how they're projecting it and how they are bringing these kids through the system. There's good teachers that are still out there, praise God for them. But there's many of them that have come out of these colleges and universities that are aligned with this and they are teaching it exactly the way they learned it in college. So, folks, project-based learning is where students come together and I'm going to tell you, I would imagine in the culturally relevant teacher's classroom that is really striving to get all of the students a good rating in cultural competence, I would imagine that the strongest of the culturally competent that we've learned that they can tell each child they're assessed constantly. I imagine they would put some kind of a group leader in each one of these groups because they compare their ratings with other schools to see who is leading in cultural competence. This right here, when you remember, we've discussed so many times transformational social and emotional learning. The same thing's happening here. If we were to pull the plug on social and emotional learning and this stayed, it could function a lot like social and emotional learning. And they're thinking that it's technology skills. You know, you can't think that with any of these framework systems. All right. So you can read more about that and learn all you want. I'm just giving you a flavor today, an overall bird's eye view. Now, we're going to do a project-based learning thing. This would be a history or I forget, but let me just read the post for you real quick. It says outrageous. Some of you may have seen this. It just happened this past month. Outrageous. A teen girl in Middleton, Wisconsin was ordered to write her full name on a square in a high school hallway and publicly declare herself as a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. She refused at first because she had overheard other students pointing at the red squares and sneering. All of those people are Nazis. She told the history teacher she was afraid. She explained what she had heard, and the teacher dismissed her and ordered her to participate anyway. She was described as shaking after being forced to out herself politically in front of her peers. This is intimidation, not education, and this is what happens when school trade neutrality for activism. Now, I'm going to give Moms for Liberty folks. I hope some of y'all are on here today. It's not neutral. There's no neutrality. There hasn't been neutrality in the schools for decades. Secular humanism is the religion of the schools, period, full stop. But anyway, this particular exercise it's illegal. It's against parental rights. It's just so totally wrong. This is totally wrong. But this is just a good idea for us to think about. This is why we need to coach our kids. When things like this happen, they need to be able to come home and talk with us. Now, I want you to look at this a little bit closer so you can understand this is even worse than what you just now thought. Let's go a little further. We've got at the top the fiscally liberal, the bottom, the fiscally conservative, the socially liberal over here, and the socially conservative over here. You notice there's far fewer Republican tags, several independents right here in the middle, maybe up in here. But look at all of the blue. I mean, really, do you think that a lot of kids just capitulated so they could live in peace and put a blue one up there? Possibly. Possibly some of them put it themselves, as I'm not either, But then which one of these do you think would represent a kid like Charlie Kirk? I think he's way down here in the corner. Some kid right here is very well versed in what's going on with this exercise and isn't afraid to say it. But there's so many kids that are not prepared to defend themselves in this way. And so this is an excellent example of peer group work. This was one of their projects. So, all right. Then look at this. Just a few days later, it happened again. And my guess is that this probably happened in several schools in that area. And there's probably a network of different teachers that do things together. I don't know. Maybe in the same book. I don't know. Same program. So pretty much the same thing. So folks, when you're talking about these situations with peers and their work, you can refer to this program right here. All right. Now, here's another thing. We have Black Lives Matter is something that we all kind of look for CRT. I mean, it's not written in this particular practice, but you can understand why Black Lives Matter or why LGBTQ could come into this. So an example in practice, a history class might analyze social media posts to teach media literacy, asking students to spot bias or misinformation. I've seen those kinds of things happen with some of the lessons that I've looked at that I've got in our repository. This kind of thing with media literacy, yeah, I can see where kids would come together and have these kinds of discussions. Right now, a lot of the discussions are also coming to the forefront with what's going on with immigration. A lot of the students that are in the schools that are known to be migrants. It's unfortunate, but these are the kind of discussions that they're having. And they're turning a lot of the kids against the law. They're turning them against their families. They're turning them against the ICE officers, the police, all of that, trying to use empathy in a weaponized way. And they're doing it through peer studies. Okay, so the claim again is social and emotional learning skills or educational frameworks that apply a critical lens to build all the things that we've talked about before with the five castle competencies. And cultural reflection is used, equity analysis, addressing biases, fostering self-awareness, all of those things. And likewise, P21 framework, 4 C's, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, promote, get that word, interrogating information, problem solving, and ethical navigation in a changing world. When you see them speaking about ethics or morals, you have to come straight out with the question, based on what standard? Make sure you know those words. Based on what standard? All right, so next, here are the facts. SEL uses mental and emotional health for humanist transformation, while 21st century skills prioritizes tech-driven workforce readiness via innovation, digital and media literacy for global governance, not citizenship. They fluff it out with the word citizenship. No, what it is, it's for global governance, right? You got to think in a different way. Okay.
And dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that lift up every student. I hope you heard me say the words. Diversity, equity, inclusion. We cannot allow this administration or anyone else reduce these three sacred values to a simple 3-letter slur. Diversity is our uniqueness and our strength. Equity means every student gets what they need when they need it in the way that serves them the best. Inclusion flourishes when all of our students are seen and valued and respected, that they all have access to opportunities and support. Delegates, we cannot fear the future. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Say the words. Say the words. Say them. Say them out loud. Say them again. Oh, freedom. We're educators.
Folks, I hate to torture you with that video again, but I can't get away from it because that is absolutely what you have to have in your bookmarks when you are talking to other people about the absolute standards of this school, of the school system. Absolutely. Those are the standards. Becky Pringle and other people involved with the NEA have shaped our classrooms, and they have taken part with the 21st century skills. They have woven this into the schools all the way through into the way it's being measured, and it ties all the way up to the global scale of UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And then also Office for Economic Cooperation and Development. So you've got corporations that are involved in this as well as investors, and plus they're looking for the outcomes of workers as well. So, all right. Now, I want you to also add this to your bookmarks eventually, and you can look this up. Justice Potter Stewart's dissent in this Supreme Court case, okay? Oh, hang on. I'm trying to move this one particular thing. All right. Abington School District versus Shemp. Okay. He was the lone dissenting opinion in this school district. Okay. Regarding the case, school district of Abington Township, Pennsylvania versus Shemp. Okay. When you look down here at the last sentence where he talks about that, I mean, the whole case was about removing prayer in schools and mandated Bible reading. So this was going on in the early 60s. 1963, park that in your memory that year because we're going to touch that in just a minute too. But this is this last sentence. He's talking about when they all voted to remove all of these things from the schools. He says a refusal to permit religious exercises thus is seen not as the realization of state neutrality, but rather as the establishment of a religion of secularism. I mean, honestly, secularism. And that is just another foundational document that you need to use in your repertoire. He pretty much predicted this. I mean, folks, when I saw this particular outcome from this case, he's like, it's not a realization of state neutrality, but rather as the establishment of a religion of secularism. There it goes. And what have we seen? We have the proof that that's what's going on. She just said it. And if you listen to her entire speech, if you can take it, you'll see all the way through it the absolute attack on Christianity and other religions as well. Folks, this is where we are, and this is why we need to stand. And we need lawmakers involved in this. All right, next. Remember, it was 1963 that the 45 communist goals were entered into the congressional record. Folks, read through them. They're in the Parent Navigator too, or you can just Google them. Read through them because all of these things, every single one of these particular goals that they had that's in red is it pertains to the schools. But look at number 11, one world government. Folks, that's why we have the UN and the UNESCO, all of that that's involved. We have the World Economic Forum trying to provide partnering with Randy Weingarten to bring curriculum in our schools. We need to be aware of that. We need to be doing open records in our school districts to find out if that's part of what we've got in our schools right now. There's all kinds of things that we've got to stay alert to. So when you read all of these things, I mean, look at it, get control of the schools, the teachers' unions, all of this. If you've not really sat down and read this, all of this goes hand in hand at the global level, and P21 is driving it straight into the globalist viewpoints. Okay, so there you go. And right here in the middle, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Discredit everything about the Bible and the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. It's trying to make religious people, anyone that believes in the Bible, look stupid. So there you go. You have proof. You can give these things and talk to people about these things when they try to act like they are more intellectual than you are. Say, wait a minute, and show them these things. And there's other documents that can be used as well. Many of our historical documents will prove things as well. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. But I'm just sitting here showing you all these particular things, how they've weaponized our mental health system, how they're making more out of it, how they're trying. I mean, even the defund the police comes from this. Transform some of the powers of arrest from the police to social workers. I mean, goodness, there you go. So, who engineered the 21st Century Skills Framework? A bunch of people that probably you wouldn't know, okay? But a lot of these people are involved in corporations, and a lot of them particularly are involved with the OECD, and they're also involved at global levels. So just look through these and read them as much as you want. I didn't really want to get into each individual person here because I want to be able to just introduce this as an overall framework to you today. A lot of money. I mean, Cisco is huge in it, so I will say that. And they very much want the global curriculum advocacy to be started and in many ways it is because a lot of these you can tell these curriculum companies have gotten together and they pretty much are presenting a lot of similar information. But then you'll see the NEA leadership, how much they were involved in this as well. Um, Comprehensive sex education hit the global levels way before any of this SEL, whole child, or P21, I assure you. If any of you know Sharon Slater with Family Watch International, she could probably tell you more than you would ever want to know because she and her organization have done a stellar job at the global level of pretty much revealing what's been going on for decades with UNESCO and with just Planned Parenthood Federation. That's the global name for their company. And then also, we're looking at other people that Intel is another one. Intel, some of the technology, lots of different people in that respect. So, of course, we know that we've had introductions into other systems that are people that are interested in global outcomes and everything too. But pretty much technology has pretty much been a strong proponent for the P21 skill set. All right, next. You can read more about all of the globalist mindsets of these people, ideological bias risk, transparency issues in P21. There's a lot. I don't think any of it's going to surprise you. It almost seemed redundant, but I put it in here for you to read later on. Strategies for parents to address bias. As you learn about this more and you're ready to confront some of these issues, these are some of the ideas that actually Grok came up with for everyone to look at. And I think some of them using FOIA requests ahead of time to access any of the 21st century skills lesson plans in your area. It'd be a good start. Let's just see how they respond to it. See if they're going to be as paranoid about it as they are with SEL, because we know that they don't ever want to give us any of the access codes for that. So you can look through all of this. Everyone, the second part where it says advocate for local control, we all need to be studying how our local control laws apply. And we need to have discussions with attorneys. We need to see if there's an attorney that's willing to come and do a lunch and learn talking about what can we do with local control laws in our school district. We need someone to educate us on the laws in each of our states and areas to find out how we can employ this law to protect children. I absolutely implore you to do this because that is where all of this has to change, is at the local level. All right, so next, the overall assessment. Now, this is interesting, and I'm just going to lightly touch on a couple of things here because I got some really other stuff I want to share. The whole child education movement is pretty much the holistic way of educating children, right? So that's one framework in its own, right? That's like an umbrella over the particular P21 life skills and Castle's SEL competencies. So they have a lot of conceptual alignments. They share a lot of different programs that you can Google, like Corporate Voices for Working Families, Conference Board, SHRM, all of these different things you can look at, and you can figure out how they are working with this connected ecosystem of these three areas, whole child, P21, and Castle, because all three of those frameworks are measured on your children. I had concerns. It says the overlap reinforces potential for bias in implementation, like NEA's progressive SEL advocacy via Castle alignments linking to Planned Parenthood. All of these different things just come together and just overwhelm. I mean, I'm overwhelmed just telling you about it. All right. So now just take a breath for a minute because this has been like, gosh, you just parted my hair with all of this information. I know there's something else sinister coming against precious children in my town, in my family, in my home. The whole child approach social and emotional learning, and partnership for 21st century skills. There are three influential educational models aimed at preparing students for success beyond traditional academics. Every bit of this is non-academic, as you well know. They're using flowery words like holistic development. They differ in scope, focus, and origins. And the thing is, whole child approach is this big conglomerated thing. I'm going to have to bring Kelly Skonkowski to come and speak with us because she's like been diving into this for years, and just interview her one day. And that way we can get some of her tie in to all of this because I don't have to recreate the wheel. She has done an amazing amount of work, and I'll try to post some information to send you guys later on that. But whole child in conjunction with all of these things, targeting specific social and emotional things that are going on in children, and also emphasizing all the skills for what they're looking for in P21, all of this together is what's presenting, as I've said before many times, this is what's wreaking havoc among our kids. This is what's making them depressed. All of this mental health. If you listen to Abigail Shrier, she'll say when you sit here and you keep pulling them back into it over and over and over and over again, eventually they are going to believe that they need mental help. That is a lot of what this does, in my opinion. And P21 just reinforces it by using the technology to do it as well. So you can read the compare and contrast, the similarities. It's just a little bit, it all overlaps, and a lot of it has a lot of similarities. So you can look at it. Now to how they are looking at this is the part that interests me the most because I can memorize where everything came from in SEL. I could memorize everything about P21, whole child. I could do that if I wanted to. But my whole thing is doing the zoom, the 30,000 foot view. How are they connecting it and how are they using it? How are they transforming the kid? What systems are they using? Remember last year we did the AI. We talked about AI and how they were using AI in the schools to manage your children. And Securely Discern was one that we really went into. And guys, after we did that video, Securely took down this video because they realized that they exposed themselves. So you can't find this video anymore. P21 is measured right here. Before we talked about Castle, we talked about the mental health screening and the screeners and all of that. That's your whole child part right there. School climate, all of these things that they're measuring, skills and competencies. Portrait of a Graduate is the P21, okay? But then when you look down here, it says, and more frameworks coming online soon. I'm sure they have more aligned that we don't even know about yet. So what's Portrait of a Graduate? Look at this. Your North Star for impact. The first step to achieve lasting impact is establishing a shared vision of future-ready, deeper learning for every student. Your Portrait of a Graduate. Locally developed and globally positioned, a school district's Portrait of a Graduate is developed with the community to identify the durable skills and competencies students need for success in this rapidly changing, complex world. You can find that and go into this portrait gallery and see if your school is there at battelforkids.org, Portrait of a Graduate. So they're giving you the color that this is local. They're giving you a color of local control, but there are scads of these things, but they're all coming into alignment with this framework, which is measured. So they're trying to make you think you have local control, and it's not that way at all. Wait till you see more. So all of those are Ohio schools. There's tons of Ohio schools, folks. So all of these are extremely subjective. They all take away from academics. They're all shaping the future. Holistic, emotional, and workforce. They're taking all of that They're comparing all of it together. They're teaching it disciplinarily through AI. There's different papers you can read about what's influenced it as well, like Nation at Hope, this particular report, all of this just in time for COVID. And lo and behold, who else was interested in this particular commission? None other but Timothy Shriver, who is over Castle. So all of this is coming together, right? So just bear with me a moment. These are different things that I picked up. You can read this paper. Aspen Institute is one of the woke they try to give all the evidence-based information for SEL and all this stuff to make people believe that what they're doing is quality education, which it's not. So all of this comes down to this. Y'all, this is the part I've been waiting to show you. P21 merges with Battelle for Kids, okay? Battelle for Kids is where the portrait of a graduate stuff's there, okay? So they merge. And now, as of July, Battelle for Kids just merged with American Association of School Administrators, the School Superintendents Association. It's the bloated deep state of every school. That's where we're at. Okay, now look at this. Here is their webpage, the School Superintendents Association. Here's their webpage, and it says that this particular Superintendents Association, second paragraph, marking a powerful new phase in our journey to support the future of public education. This move assists AASA in serving school leaders and districts nationwide, leveraging the best of both organizations to drive data-driven innovation, leadership development, and best practice learning modules, ensuring that students emerge from high school ready for real life. Y'all, this just gave your superintendent so much power. And folks, when I said to Grok, I said, oh, blending this with the controller of the district, that makes perfect sense. It just makes perfect sense for what they're trying to do at a global level. And he said all of this that's typed below. Why this makes sense and raises alarms. Top-down consolidation. AASA, with its superintendent network, now controls Battelle's P21 legacy, portrait tools, and innovation pipelines. This could standardize future-ready education across states, echoing globalist pushes, as in the OECD-style competencies, while embedding SEL whole child elements like equity and resilience, potentially via NEA, Planned Parenthood partnerships, as we've discussed. Bias and globalism risks, no overt woke mentions, but AASA's equity advocacy, like in their 2025 resolutions, and Battelle's data-driven models could prioritize progressive metrics like DEI and student outcomes, tying to your concerns about Nuzella at Fontes biases or UNESCO influences. Guys, it is just all the way through. The distrust factor for me is off the scale, as you can tell. I said to the Grok, I'm like, this is just dismal. At this point, it's dismal. So when parents get cold-shouldered, and now with AASA scale, demanding transparency on portrait implementations will be tougher, but crucial. Guys, I have spoken with so many school superintendents. I had 10 different districts in South Georgia when I was working, when we lived in Georgia. And I'm going to tell you something. They know exactly what to say to your face to get you off of their desk, away from their desk, where they can get on with their day. And then later on, you have to follow up and say you didn't follow through. And you have to babysit them. They will put you off. All of a sudden, you get fed up. You realize that you're going to have to take action by exposing them. And you have to really work hard. I have looked at some of these superintendents on LinkedIn. I've looked at some of their education. I've looked at the papers they've published and all of this. They are all down for this one world approach. They're all down for the DEI, all of these things. I have exposed them in several different school districts across the country to people, showing them where they've come from, where they're educated. Guys, it is time that we realize that these grandiose CVs, that these superintendents, their glorified little resumes that they're presenting to us, if they do not have a vested heart in our communities, in our children, you should not hire them. They are not trustworthy for the most part. I'll say it. Now, say it again. So, I'm a little hot under the collar about that merger, to be honest with you, because it adds just another layer to this entire school ecosystem that is so hard to track. So, action steps: track the AASA rollouts, demand local tweaks, audit the tools, scrutinize district use of Battelle AASA resources. Make sure you look at all of those and join the network. Engage AASA's public forums on X, convos, and voice neutrality needs. Guys, it's something, another thing that we didn't need to add to our list to keep going with. So, what could an unrestrained superintendent do with this kind of control? God only knows. God only knows. It looks like it can sideline parental input quite readily. And like I say, watch out red rural counties because it's beyond time to hire local superintendents. I thought I would do something for you, a little exercise. Even in the free state of Florida, if you're on X or if you're in the news, you see Ron DeSantis talking about, well, we do this in Florida. All I have to do is the opposite of what Gavin Newsom does in California. And that's good for a chuckle. But I'm going to tell you something. This stuff's in Florida too. So don't think that Florida is immune to it. 60% rural, just little community right next to my county. Putnam County, Florida. There's their portrait of a graduate. Putnam County School District, shaping the future. Yeah, they're doubling down. The Democrats and these people that are down for these schools, they are doubling down because they know that that they are crumbling and that this is their only hope of a future in order to get all of these goals accomplished that they want to do. They are not hiding even. They know that these things have to be fought at the local level. They know it. And you can come back and read all of these different boxes that were on that particular one for just little old Putnam County schools, and you can see exactly. I've put it in yellow here. Some of the things that are, that they're using. And I even put this chart from our Castle series in here. Remember, this is progressive. And they will introduce something to a child. They experience a conversion about this, the self-management place, replace the values when they get among their peers, application among peers, and then they will test them among peers to see if they'll make the responsible decision to see if full transformation in SEL has taken place. Folks, all of these different things on these boxes for portrait of a graduate, all of this relates to SEL. It's a backup SEL program. So when we try to fight to get SEL out of the schools, we need to get portrait of a graduate, P21 out of the schools, along with the screeners. This entire mental health apparatus has got to go. So here's Ayn Rand. And I think this is one of the most profound things that she says. There is no difference between communism and socialism except in the means of achieving the same ultimate end. Communism proposes to enslave men by force and socialism by vote. It is merely the difference between murder and suicide. Folks, look at New York, look at Dearborn, look at Texas. There's several people right now that are going through a communist takeover. And if it's not communist, it's Islam using communism to bring about jihad. These are some of the things that are going on, and these kids that are acting like they're aligned with them, it's because they've been so dumbed down they don't know what they're doing. This is, I've shown you through the so many videos now that this is where all of this leads to with UNESCO, World Economic Forum, all of these different things. P21 is a framework to take American children into a globalist mindset, and it's now designed to take the most conservative rural areas for ultimate inclusion into the globalist landscape. Controlled by superintendents, make sure you're hiring local. All right. We cannot afford to think of Trump like he's 0047. Folks, just because Trump got elected does not mean this stuff's going away. It's like what Diane was saying, the school board races are out right now. Tomorrow, you need to be calling people, folks. Y'all need to be electing conservatives. And we need to do a much better job of recruiting people to run for school boards. Watching the webinars is not enough. We've got to get busy. They're hiding stuff in all of these different things. Um, I'll show you that on probably every webinar for a while to make sure you're still hunting them. Oh, okay. So here we're landing the plane once again, folks. And I want to thank Diane and John and the rest of the crew for supporting this work. And make sure you go and visit. They have had more information uploaded this week to their heat map, so you need to be looking at that. There are the two free books that tell you a lot of the overall information. You can share those with friends, with your adult children. You can also look for next month. We're going to do the inclusion intrusion, which you're going to really find some of the stuff I found on this pretty crazy as well. So these are things I don't mean to just totally depress y'all once a month. That's not my goal. But I do want to inform you because we have got to stay together on this. So, anyway, that will be next month. And as always, please share this information on Facebook, X, wherever your social media is. Share these videos, share the content, and we'll see you again on December 1st. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. I left a little bit of time. That was a lot. Sorry.
So Marcia will take questions, but before we do, the way you have pointed out the collaboration that's going on with superintendents across states, across the nation, um, when they talk about local control, it's a joke because they're already conspiring how many different flavors of garbage they're presenting to you at a local level. So we've got to break that down. We're not getting local control. We're getting a socialist communist control.
Right, but they put it on that little portrait of a graduate thing and make you think that you've got local control.
It's a
That
scam.
yeah,
Everything is rigged. Well, let's get you
everything.
some questions, Marcia. We have someone here. We found out our state librarian has terrible conflicts of interest that would be in the way of enforcing the state laws we have passed to protect children. He is president of COSLA and Gale Database Company sponsors them, also partners with United Against Banned Books. It's just horrible. And the ACLA and ALA who sponsors COSLA. So this is about the libraries.
Hmm.
We also have just the fact that the schools force kids to consider what political affiliation they have is forcing them to develop an identity that they are most likely too young to understand.
Right.
True that.
Yep.
Okay, Marcia, were you able to capture the full video before it was removed?
Absolutely, I was. I sure was. I
All
can send
right.
that link out to you.
Okay.
If you'd like to
Okay,
have it,
let's
just
see.
email me. And that's
Okay.
parentsonthelevel@gmail.com. Parentsonthelevel@gmail.com. So if
Parents
you,
on the level at gmail.com. Okay, what is the role of the single sign-on portal in these paradigms? Kids are logging into Clever, ClassLink, or other SSO single sign-on portals at the beginning of their school days.
well, I mean, it depends on what they've programmed them with. I mean, I don't know. Every school district's going to be different. They measure everything on them. It depends. I mean, because schools buy different programs, and that's the thing about why this has to be done at local control levels as well. First, you have to find out what they have, and then you have to find out what's in them, and then you pretty much have to fight at every local level, and they know that. They've set that up to where it would be hard to get rid of it.
And they have a layer of something like securely that actually monitors every keystroke and every word that they're saying on their computer, and certain terms and sentences trigger a school counselor intervention, depending on what they've typed. It's
Exactly.
so, it's so crazy. They're
Next
not
month,
safe.
next month. That's a lot of what I'm diving into, and it will blow your mind what I'm going to be talking about next month.
This seems overwhelming for the parent at the local level, but one thing might be possible. What if we introduce legislation, for instance, in Ohio, to demand that Ohio schools no longer prepare students to be, quote, global citizens, but to become, quote, American citizens? Just start with one dimension of this propaganda. What do you think?
I think that that will take some definite strategy. um, that they have all this written out. I mean, I would refer to John to look at some uh, verbiage to put in a bill, a resolution that we could introduce at the state level is all I know to start with. But you're going to have to give your legislators, proof of what's in your particular um, school, what they're using. And I think FOIA's, asking them each one. Again, we are just beginning with this, so I'm looking at, what kind of things are they using, what digital systems are they using to introduce this? Is this mainly in laboratories, like, in science, or are these history, lessons? I mean, all of it's integrated together from what we can tell by what we've just read. But what are some of the particulars? I mean, we would just have to see what they have in Ohio or whatever other states are represented by our audience today. You'd have to look at it by state and see what they're saying. So it's very
So,
interesting.
so conservatives in Ohio, I know Protect Ohio Children has done this. We have specifically called out evidence and socialized the evidence that they are using these terms in social emotional learning. We need to also double down and socialize the terms that you've pointed out
Yeah,
today on this webinar to show, yes, indeed, they are talking global instead of American
yeah,
and presenting that evidence that should start to shake up our legislators to know that we're no longer talking about American values.
that's right. That's exactly what we need to do. And we need to really, I mean, we already know that Randy Weingarten lately has been exposed for saying that she's working on a curriculum with the World Economic Forum for the American schools. That's one thing y'all need to stay ahead of and make sure that that's not taking place. But the other thing is with this, just say, we want to hear more about what you're talking about with global. I mean, they're even talking about in some of this information where these kids would be working with other cultures, meaning like online with other countries even. And I know like we used to do the pen pal thing way back in the day, but when you're talking about an electronic relationship when you really don't know who's on the other end of that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I guess you really didn't know back then who was writing a letter either, but electronically, it's a lot more dangerous than sending a snail mail, right? So, I don't know. There's so many unknowns to this. And as always, there are so many digital programs out there that are going to do this in different ways. So a lot of this has to do with discovery and it has to do with your local level. So we'll dig in. I have some friends that are board members and I want to see what they know about it, see what they can find out as well. So we'll just move on from there and come back to the table when we find out more information. But that was an excellent question. And you know what? I'd say try it and see what happens. At least, like you said, it'll socialize the information.
So I'm not quite sure if we understand this question. How do you encourage conservative board members when they are being lumped into no bond slash overrides and anti-public school? I know there's a lot of pressure on conservative school board members.
Yeah.
Some of them feel just totally worn out and not even wanting to run again. What's your take on this, Marcia?
Say that first part again, what they said.
How do you encourage conservative board members when they are being lumped into no bond slash overrides and anti-public school?
Hmm. Well, I'm sure that a lot of our school board members feel the conservative ones, and I talk to some that are the Lone Ranger in their schools. I have several that I talk to right now like that. Um, and that they feel like they can't speak. Um, they can get chewed out by someone when they are totally aligned with the person chewing them out, but they can't say anything. They speak with one voice as a board, they feel. But we need to find out, and inform them that no, you still have a singular voice with constituents that your seat represents, and you can speak with them freely about how you feel about things. I know I have friends that are school board members that can tell you some of the things they've gone through, and I mean, they are hitting it hard and they're doing great work. So I'm not exactly sure what all they were referring to when they asked that question, but I would just say, how do I encourage them? I pray with them. I let them vent and we strategize and we just try to find ways that we can either do open record work or we just learn more. We figure out what's going on. I'm constantly texting what I know about different things to help them when they go to meetings. So that's all I can say right now.
Yeah, we share the concern, and thank you for that question. This question, our superintendent just joined NCERT, a superintendent organization from California. Have you heard of it?
I read something with those initials, but I'm by no means well versed on it. You said NCERT, right?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, no, I read something about it. It's ringing a bell, but I can't tell you what it is. I'm sorry. I wish I
Can
could.
you confirm if Randy Weingarten has moved on from Teachers Union? If so, where's she hiding now to influence?
Who knows? I'm not sure. I am not sure. That woman, she and her her significant other, she's in a same-sex marriage with a lesbian rabbi. Just let that sink in for a minute. There's no telling what the two of them are doing. I know that her counterpart was involved in the Welcome US. So I know they are very much global minded and very much would like to see, all of the illegals probably have all the things that citizens have, including voting rights here. So I would say that she is somewhere doing something that would work against us. That's all I can say.
Question is, could I get sent a link of the recording? Yes, absolutely. We'll be sending that out
Mhm.
in the next day or so as a follow-up to this webinar. Um, Okay, just a couple more. I feel the whole entire education system is too powerful to fight. We needed to prevent this takeover. At this point, I think homeschooling without using state funds is the only way. But of course, we need to save the kids who won't be homeschooled and prepare the homeschoolers to fight the world influences they will inevitably encounter.
Mhm. I agree with you. And the thing is, too, I mean, even if you take your own children out and you're homeschooling them, we still have to fight in the schools because these are the people that are going to lead the America of tomorrow. So we need to be responsible in that and do what we need to do to crack this. Now, is the school strong and powerful? Absolutely. But so was Goliath. And so is God. God is big and powerful. And my recommendation to you guys, I'm just going to share from my own faith here with you as a Christian. The Bible tells us that there's no wisdom, insight, or plan that will succeed against the Lord. And when He is willing to do something to change things, sometimes He will allow evil to grow so people can just see how bad evil truly is in hopes that they will turn to Him. So, my recommendation is for everyone to stay in prayer on this and to get into the Word and ask the Lord to reveal what you should do, what's your part in it.
You know, Marcia, I know that you have been in the fight a long time, and our group and others, we were back way before COVID, exposing and just begging people to look at the stuff, and we couldn't get people to wake up and see it.
Mhm.
And because people were faithful to keep exposing, guess what? Now even President Trump talks about this stuff. So,
Yep,
it's not going to be exposed unless people are continually bringing it up repeatedly over and over and over again. And that's our job to expose. But 100%, I agree. Get the kids out of these schools. It's dangerous. But
absolutely.
have empathy and be concerned about those children that are trapped in these schools. We have to keep fighting for them, as Marcia so well stated. Okay, oh wait, let's see. Okay, we got a couple more. Is there a conservative school superintendent association?
Not that I'm aware of, but what a great question. I know a couple of conservatives, and they do the best they can to try to keep things under control. But the common denominator with those conservative school superintendents, they were hired local. They did not come out of one of these woke teaching schools. They were hired local. I'd rather have a business person than somebody that came out of one of these woke business schools running the school, honestly. So,
Okay, and then one last comment came through. Amen. We must fight for every child, not just our children. And that's a wrap, Marcia. All of our questions have been covered today.
well, good, good, good. Y'all, thank y'all so much. Please share this information. Share it with your children and grandchildren and Godspeed to all of you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out, parentsonthelevel@gmail.com.
Thank
Have
you,
a
everyone.
great Thanksgiving. We will see you December 1st.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.